Geneva Environment Network. Welcome to participants in the room here in the International Environmental House and also to those connecting with us online. As Diana mentioned, the aim of the briefing is to provide an overview of the status of the negotiations related to the chemicals and waste and present the latest information on the important conference scheduled for the second half of 2022 and in 2023. I'm honored to be chairing this event. We have quite a number of key conferences and processes to be presented to you today. So I'm grateful also to all our speakers for your time to be with us today and to present first-hand information. We have scheduled 2 hours for the event, and let me make a logistical note that I would like to remind all the speakers of the allotted time for your respective presentations, so please stick to these allocations so we would ensure that also the speakers presenting later can do it without a rush and we have a sufficient time for questions and answers. I would like to start the first part of the briefing with providing a context of international cooperation to the work of the Minamata Convention on Mercury, and this time focusing on science and on human rights. The Minamata Convention turned 5 on 16th of August this year, and this anniversary was an occasion for us to remind ourselves that the science is needed in nearly all aspects of the convention. Let me briefly mention there was a major event in July this year, the 15th International Conference on Mercury as a Global Pollutant. It took Africa, was organized online. The International Conference on Mercury as a Global Pollutant is the largest forum for mercury scientists in the world, and many of our own staff in the Secretariat, but more importantly, experts and policymakers from countries engage and collaborate with the International Conference. This year, the conference focused on issues such as linkages between the climate change and mercury pollution, artisanal and small-scale gold mining, effectiveness evaluation of the Minamata Convention, global mercury transport, and mercury in Southern Hemisphere. And I have to say I was really impressed by the high level of ambition and commitment and efforts by scientists involved in the conference to make the latest scientific results available and known to policy processes, including under the Minamata Convention. And to give you one example, there will be 4 scientific synthesis papers on the topics of direct relevance to our work. And this and currently Secretariat is engaging with the conference to identify opportunities how to make the findings of these papers more widely known. Another key scientific process I would like to mention is the newly established open-ended scientific group, which is tasked to support the first evaluation of the effectiveness of the Minamata Convention. As one of the co-chairs of the expert group said, the group is working with unprecedented transparency and inclusiveness, as it is open to 1 member from each party, and in addition to a Minamata Convention roster of experts nominated by countries and organizations. The roster was initiated by the Secretariat and currently consists of some 70 experts who can follow the work and can be called upon to provide input as needed. And lastly, on science, I would like to mention 2 studies the Secretariat is preparing with the use of funding from Sweden. Thank you, Sweden, for your contribution. The studies are actually being finalized as I speak and will be released very soon, one on ecosystem services and mercury, and the other one on socioeconomic impacts of mercury pollution on fisheries and livelihoods. And the studies are a follow-up to the COP4 decision on international cooperation, which for the first time recognized the importance of addressing mercury pollution in connection with the global loss of biodiversity. You may know that in last June, the CBD open-ended working group on the post-2020 global biodiversity framework took place in Nairobi. And I was really glad to see that one of the outcomes of that meeting is a new reference to mercury pollution and other heavy metals added to the first draft of the global to the global biodiversity framework for further negotiation. And optimally, this reference will remain in the final text of the framework, as it will naturally allow the connections between the 2 conventions to be even stronger and would allow for more integration. The second topic I would like to bring your attention to is the latest annual thematic report by the UN Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights, Marcos Orellana, dedicated to the harms and risks for human rights of the use of mercury in small-scale gold mining. To remind our audience, mercury is widely used in artisanal and small-scale gold mining to extract gold from ore, causing substantial emissions to the environment globally, and is one of the issues addressed by the Minamata Convention. The report has been submitted to the 51st session of the Human Rights Council, which started yesterday and will last until 7th of October. And this report is significant. It makes the point that in most small-scale gold mining locations worldwide, where mercury is used, the human rights for miners, the families and communities, and the indigenous people and traditional landowners are increasingly compromised by mercury contamination. Also, in the report, the UN Special Rapporteur expresses his view that the current international governance for addressing this issue has gaps, and puts forward some recommendations how these gaps could be addressed. With that, I would like also to mention that the presentation of the report will happen on 20th of September. There will be an interactive dialogue for that purpose. I will, together with my colleagues, attend. And that leads me to my last point, which is to also promote and to share information that, as in previously, GEN, together with its partners, will be organizing various sessions of the Geneva Toxic Free Talks in parallel to the session of the Human Rights Council. Most of these, or all of these events will be taking place outside Palais, and the events will be taking place on 21st and 22nd September. I'm sure that you have seen announcements also on the GEN website, but for example, there will be a session on the right not to be exposed, a contribution to a toxic-free planet on 21st September at 6:15, just after a side event on the mention report by Marco Orellana. And after that, there will be a reception for the 25 years of the mandate on toxics and human rights. So you are all encouraged, if you can, to join this important event. But with that, I would like to conclude my opening, and I would like now to invite Monica McDevitt, the head of the Chemicals and Health branch of UNEP, to please take your time and deliver your opening remarks. So Monica, over to you.
Thank you very much for that, Monica, and my apologies for not being present in person this morning. I had a very early start to my day today with the government of Japan, so I'm back from working from home. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share some of the work of the UNEP Chemicals and Health branch today. I'll be stepping in for my colleague, Catherine Theotokatos, who was to give the more detailed presentation, but she's unwell this week and we all wish her a speedy recovery. So I'll also be doing the more detailed briefing later on in the program. As you know, UNEP has a 4-year medium-term strategy operationalized through 2 successive biennial programs of work. We take our mandates from the UNEA resolutions, and in March of 2022, 2 resolutions in particular are important to the Chemicals and Health branch. Resolution UNEA 5/7, the sound management of chemicals and waste, and Resolution UNEA 5/8, the Science Policy Panel to contribute further to the sound management of chemicals and waste and to prevent pollution. I won't go into detail on the Science Policy resolution, as we have Kevin with us, who will give us an update on that. While these are the focus areas for the branch, there are several other UNEA resolutions that will draw on the expertise within the branch to ensure a comprehensive and integrated contribution to delivering UNEP's overall mandate and ensuring the issues of chemicals and waste are considered across all of UNEP's work. And I certainly won't go into all of the UNEA resolutions and the relevance to chemicals and waste. We often focus on the work we do on chemicals here in the Geneva-based team, but I also want to highlight the work of the branch from the Nairobi and Osaka teams particularly on air pollution, sustainable mobility and e-vehicles, on waste management and waste technologies, especially in the context of circularity from e-waste to lead-acid batteries and plastic waste management. So we often see the kind of work that we do here in Geneva and the focus on chemicals in many ways. The branch consists of much more than our work on chemicals, although everything does have a chemicals related aspect to it. Critical as well to our work is the link between environmental health and human well-being, with the World Health Organization and others, particularly through the IOMC interagency partnership, being key partners. I'll speak a bit more about this during my presentation later on specifically antimicrobial resistance, or AMR. These all have very critical links to our work on chemicals and the work we do with the chemicals and waste related MEAs, although they may not physically be present here in Geneva. As the work of the branch is increasingly regarded as integral to the division and UNEP's work on circularity, engaging with industry and delivering in a country context has taken on a higher profile in delivering our global work in a national context and with relevance to key high impact sectors. UNEP's medium-term strategy for 2022 to 2025 is well underway, including with a revised regional and country delivery model. We're aligning our delivery to be more strongly integrated with the UN country teams and country priorities for UN intervention and support. And it goes without saying that we cannot succeed without partnerships, so partnerships are paramount. And partnerships include engagement with governments, and we're deeply grateful for the continued financial and collegial support that we get from many, many governments, and for the guidance in implementing the resolutions that are given to us. So with these few introductory remarks, I'll make a bit more detail to them in my slot during the presentations today, but I just thought I would set the scene for you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica, for your opening remarks. I know you will be speaking later during the program, but already now I would like to make all colleagues to realize that this is perhaps your last Gen briefing, maybe last public event, I don't know, Monica, because you will retire soon. And you have been with us, with UNEP, for nearly 2 decades. That's quite impressive. And I think you moved to Geneva duty station in early 2022, just in time for the COVID-19 lockdown. So definitely that was not the easiest time to move from one continent to another and take a new role, on a new role. I arrived to Geneva around the same time, and I have to say that since the very beginning, it has been really a pleasure to cooperate and coordinate with you on the matters related to chemicals and waste. As an accomplished public speaker, you have helped to raise the profile of the chemicals and waste work during your time with the branch. For those who maybe have not known Monica very well, she has a unique breadth of experience, having worked in various divisions and roles within UNEP. She's well known for her grasp of organizations' matters and mandate and how different pieces work together as a whole. She has a strong voice in the organization based not only on her substantive knowledge, but also her deep-seated principles and a very good understanding of the relevant rules and procedures. So on behalf of all the colleagues in the International Environmental House and in Geneva, I would like to thank you sincerely for your service in UN and to the countries, and wish you all the best in your next phase in life. I know this is not the last day yet. I think it has been important for all of us to express our gratitude to your work and to that we were able to get to know you. Perhaps it would be appropriate that I will give you a floor if you would like to have a reflection and say maybe not a definite goodbye, but preliminary goodbye to us and to participants. So Monica, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Monica. I really appreciate it. It was unexpected. I just keep working until the last day. And I really appreciate your kind words, and it's been a very rewarding career in UNEP for sure, and one that I'm going to cherish for an awfully long time. And to all of my colleagues in the branch and also in the rest of the Geneva Environment House, yeah, COVID really did sort of kibosh a lot of plans that we may have had to work more closely together. But I think we found ways of working together in a different way that I think we'll carry on, because there were some very good opportunities and lessons that were learned in how we work together, even virtually, as we are today. Because as I said, I was working from 7:45 this morning with the government of Japan, and it makes it easy to work with people all around the world. So thanks for those fine comments, and I will be continuing to work until my last day. And as I've mentioned to a couple other people, I hope that my last days of working won't be like Her Majesty the Queen, where 2 days after ushering out one prime minister and in a new prime minister, she passed away within 48 hours. I'm looking forward to my retirement. So, thank you very much, and let's get on with the program. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Monica. Thank you. Yes, you say, let's move with our program, and the next speaker is David Ogden, Chief Governance Branch from the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. So, David, the floor is open for your opening remarks. Over to you.
Thank you, Monica, and also congratulations to Monica on retiring. I'm not even retiring, and she looks a whole lot younger than I do, I have to say. So, at any rate, good for you. Now, this was just a welcome on behalf of our Executive Secretary, Rolf Payette, who is on mission today, cannot be here. And I don't really have prepared statement to make on his behalf. So if you allow me, I'll just make a few kind of personal observations based on having been in this business a long, long time. I started working in international chemicals management at a national government environment agency 33 years ago this September. So I've been in this business a long time, seen people move in and out. But what I can say is that a lot has changed over the 33 years that I've been in this business. For example, in 1989, the life expectancy globally was 60 years. And no, I'm sorry, in 1989, it was 60 years. And in 2022, it's 70 years. So people are living longer, which is a good thing, obviously. But as you live longer, it extends the period in which you can get cancer, because cancer takes many years often to develop. So that means that with aging populations, you have more opportunity for toxics from the environment, from food, from water, from other sources, to collect in your body over time and create these kinds of toxic effects. So it's good we're living longer. It does increase our risk for getting cancer over the course of our lifetime, but that's why we're here. We're here to try to make sure that people can live lives, longer lives, healthier lives, and still benefit from these chemicals, these very valuable products, either the chemical themselves, an alternative chemical, or even a non-chemical alternative. That's sort of the business that we're looking in. So since 1989, most of the MEAs were negotiated, adopted, and entered into force. And so they play a really great role in sort of this global regime to manage chemicals and waste. And so that's key. And they, of course, these bodies and other international organizations and, of course, national bodies, they are so key into developing the science to understand what the risks are of these chemicals, what the alternatives could be for these chemicals, and how do we prevent the sort of exposures that could lead to cancer. So it's a big, big business. So from being very small in an international sense, now it's huge, and as you're seeing. So we've learned that international cooperation is really great for preventing pollutions that cross boundaries, but it's also great for sharing science and know-how, so that not every country has to do it itself. We share, and then everyone benefits. So that's what's important. There are now 8 billion people, or close to 8 billion people on the globe, and protecting those people is our business. And I think you would find that because I know we're at a high sort of policy level, that the lives are really being saved because of the work we're doing. So I commend you all. BRS is, I think, is an important part of this, but as are the others you'll hear from today, in putting in place those sort of policies and the science behind them to try to reduce risks while still getting these benefits. So Basel Convention was entered into force in the early 1990s, and then Stockholm and Rotterdam around the year 2000. And then we had a synergies where we brought the three conventions together in 2012, which I think has actually been a really big success of that. And even more recently, our work on plastics and on e-waste is really cutting edge stuff that's going on right now. So I'm proud to be part of BRS and proud to be proud of this bigger community. So as you can see, I've never seen this level of attention on chemicals and waste my entire career. And so it's really be great to hear from all of you today. And I just think that this is, although it's a lot of work, it's very important, and it will benefit many, environment and people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, for these excellent remarks and reminding us also what's the mission, what's the purpose, and also to convey this proud of being part of the global regime, as you say, for management and chemicals and waste. I think you have spoken on behalf of all of us working for basically for people. I hope I have not now experiencing major microphone problems. I will try to switch it off.
You just
like that. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm eager to be heard by everyone. Thank you so much. I hope this is now better, but thank you so much, David. So with that, we have concluded welcome and introduction part, and I would like now move to the part of the program where we are going to hear very many important latest details. I'm sure useful to work of many of us, to all of you. And let's start with my colleague, Claudia Tenhave, Senior Policy and Coordination Officer from the Minamata Convention Secretariat. So Claudia, over to you. You have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me dive right in. You already heard many of the highlights that we have within the Minamata Convention and its work from Monica, of course, just a moment ago. But just here displayed on the slide are some of the areas where the Minamata Convention and its Secretariat and its parties are making contribution to international processes. You will recall that at our last COP, COP4, in decision 412, there was the urge again by our parties to be involved in those very close to us, like the BRS, but also many other processes that are there to safeguard our planet. And here you can see some of the items and some of the events we have been involved with. Feel free to come to our website and click into the stories to know more. And just to draw your attention to the two events that are in the gold box, because they are upcoming. The first is the one that Monica just outlined by the Special Rapporteur, and this very important report, of course, that puts the human rights angle and the focus on artisanal gold mining, but also in cooperation with the OECD and other organizations and institutions that work on chemicals. There is an upcoming conference on mercury. If you'd like to participate or know more, just get in touch with us or the respective organizers, and we shall be happy to pass you along. Moving to the next slide, I'd just like to, again, of course, also reiterate our birthday. We are 5 years old and walking, talking, and having opinions, one might say at this stage. But please visit our website, or if you've been part of some of our celebrations, you will know that we have a photo contest. So please send us your photos in terms of important aspects of mercury implementation. We also have other items such as a new course on gender and mercury. Please have a look into the specific international program and its projects, how they are doing. There's a special little video on that, and various other resources. My colleagues would have loved me to tell you many, many more items that we did and launched either on that day or in the days after, but for the sake of time, I'd like to invite you simply to come to our website or watch us on social media to see all of that action. Moving on, and this timeline I just want to stop at for a moment because everything I say after that, more or less, you already see on this timeline. As Minamata is developing as a young convention, as Monica said, but growing sturdy and steady and strong in the process, you will have seen the evolution of many of our key topics over the respective COPs. And at the most recent COP, we've had a bounty of good and strong decisions, as we've briefed you on previously. And it is now the time in this intersessional process to give shape with parties, or to help parties give shape to these intersessional areas of work. You will see here, and I will brief in a moment on the amended annex that was passed, that was adopted at COP4, but there's also work on mercury waste, on mercury releases, upcoming work on the first effectiveness evaluation and all its, that has now been started, and all its component pieces that are being put in place by parties and the Secretariat. And then, of course, the second review of the financial mechanism, and a new area of work launched specifically on gender. So let me dive into those slides, and without briefing you in detail on every single bullet, as you will, of course, have access to all our slides afterwards, where you can look back into the detail and certainly come back to us if you need any particular information. But as highlight, of course, the amended annex is a very big new development for our convention, and this means that 8 new product categories are included in the mercury added products for phase out by 2027, and also 2 more measures are put in place for the dental amalgam. This was a very, very good step forward, and countries and parties are now in the process of giving body to that commitment. And the UN depository is about to send the official communication of that amended annex out to all parties and signatories as required by the convention. And this, in turn, will trigger the timeline for that annex to come into force. For any particular details on this process, we shall have a dedicated briefing session later in the month. So please watch our space on the website when that briefing comes up, if you'd like more information on that and what it might mean for your country or for any new countries that may wish to join the Minamata family. I'd also like to take you to the next set of work, technical work on releases. COP4 decided to work on draft guidance on the best available practices and technologies in this regard, very much mirroring the approach we have taken on emissions, Article 8, that is, in terms of providing information and options to parties in terms of how they can go about in their specific national circumstances to work on, in this case, releases, which is Article 9. As you can see here, the work has started, and there was an information call for information. So this work is well underway, and you will be able to see updates on it also on our intersessional page. Let me take you to the other very technical work, and you will know this from previous intersessional periods where parties have worked on the definition of thresholds. We have 2 defined, and 1 is now in the process of being defined. That is the one of the threshold for waste containing mercury or mercury compounds, and also the work to do the testing of leaching of mines from mine tailings. Again, this is work that's already underway and well underway. If you would like to have any more specific information on that, please visit our website. This takes us through to a big item, as precipitated already by Monica, which is that the first effectiveness evaluation work has now officially started, and with it a very special body, the open-ended scientific groups work has started. You can see all the details here, and you can also, if you can make it out on the text, see some of the very specific tasks that have been entrusted to this very special and very open and transparent group. The group has met twice already. It's elected its co-chairs, and it's well underway in the preparation of its 3 plans that the group will prepare in preparation of COP5. Not displayed on this slide, but also to recall, there are 2 reports under preparation, one on the trade, what we call the trade report, and one on the Article 21 synthesis analysis. All of this is, of course, quite a lot of heavy lifting that's being done with parties and experts, and we are very grateful for all of the help and input we are getting from parties. May I also just draw your attention specifically here to this slide, the second review of the financial mechanism. We've had a first review, but now the second review begins where the first one left off, that is in August 2019 until the middle of this year, and it looks at the how the GEF, the Global Environment Facility, and how the SIP, our very small but specific international program, has assisted our parties in implementing obligations. There is a call for information that has been out, and that call is to receive information ASAP. In fact, by the 15th of September, please do participate and send the information that you may have in this, or get in touch with us if there's additional information you would think important for the review to know in its preparation. And then let me just update you on a special part of our work, of course, and a very heavy lift for all of our parties. Our parties have been extremely busy and extremely productive to hand in their national reports. We have a reporting rate of 86%. We had a reporting rate of 86% in June with only 17 reports outstanding. And by today, I can tell you that's already higher. We only are awaiting another 14 reports. And this is a really a good indication, again, of the ownership our countries are taking, our parties are taking in the work of the Secretariat and the Convention. And I just want to show you also in that slide below, in the box below on that slide, that we have seen also a marked improvement even on the timeliness of handing in the reports. The first time around in 2019, we had about 60-something of the 100-something reports that we needed to have in, but this rose to a much higher level that is up to 71%. So we're very happy that parties are not only reporting, but they're reporting faster, and to note, of course, that the 2021 reports were the full reports with 43 questions. So this really is a very big lift. Lastly, just to reiterate, of course, the important work that's being done now and initiated and supported on gender. Please have a look if there's a call for nominations of participation on online consultations for the preparation of a gender action plan. All of the details, as mentioned, are always on our website, and we shall be happy to have as many participants as possible in this important way forward. I have one more slide. In fact, I have 2 more, but here just to say thank you to all of the parties that have already paid their assessed contributions. We have many received. The assessed contributions are due at the end of this year, and so there are a couple still outstanding. If you are not aware whether your contribution has been paid, just visit our website, because we will be able to, you will be able to see clearly whether we have received it. And if we haven't, please follow up with us, because it might have gotten lost or something, and we would not want that to happen. So please do have a look that your contributions have in fact reached us and are noted on our website. And as very last, we hope to see a lot more of you, of course, in the next months. We shall be launching another Minamata online session season 3. This is extremely early program, so some dates are not, or many dates are not yet here, but in September we will be launching the first of that. And we'll have some events in October and November, and we'll be following the same stream as before. Firstly, to highlight Mercury science with a range of partners, many of which already indicated by Monica. Then the stream on implementation review, and also a stream specifically on COP5. And Minamata Online will, like always, run all the way until COP5 to help prepare you as parties and you as stakeholders as we come together in Geneva next year. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Claudia, for providing a wealth of information in a relatively short time. And I would especially like to maybe refer to what you said as a high reporting rate for our convention, and also on my behalf thank all the countries and parties for your efforts to file those reports in time. This is an extremely important source of information for the Minamata Convention. With that, let me move to the next speaker, Andrea Lechner, Program Officer from Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions. We know that the BRS COP has just been held in June, and there is another BRS Triple COP coming in May. This is an extremely short time gap to organize the big conferences like this one, and a challenge for both parties and the secretariats. Eager to hear more how we are progressing on your preparations for this triple COP. Sandra, the floor is yours, and I think you have 12 minutes. Thank you.
Many thanks, Monica. Welcome also from my side to the participants. And indeed, we have a very short intersessional period because apart from organizing the next meeting of the Conference of the Parties, we're also trying to advance on the intersessional work. So as already mentioned, we had some very special arrangement. Usually our Conference of the Parties takes place every 2 years. Because of COVID, we could not meet in 2021 as we had originally envisaged. And we thus had the COP in 2 segments. We had an online segment in 2021 just to take the most important and time-sensitive decisions, such as adoption of an interim budget. And then we had a full-fledged face-to-face segment this year where we took the full array of decisions on all our matters. And to be very correct, actually, I would need to say we had 3 segments to our COPs because we also had a high-level segment that was held in Stockholm in June in connection with the Stockholm Plus 50 meeting. So a big number of decisions were taken at the meetings of the conferences of the parties, and I'm just going to highlight a few of them that are most important. Related to the Basel Convention, so maybe the most exciting one for us is to mention the amendments to the e-waste entries. So these are amendments to the convention that were adopted. They were based on an amendment proposal made by Switzerland and Ghana. And the intention of these was to move the non-hazardous e-wastes from Annex 9 to Annex 2, which is the annex for waste requiring special attention, with the implication that all of the e-wastes are now subject to the prior informed consent procedure that is available under the convention. These amendments become effective as of 1st of January 2025. A lot of other technical and legal and compliance work was also done at the meetings. Many technical guidelines were updated and the updated versions adopted. So just to mention a few, the POPs waste, the mercury waste, incineration, specially engineered landfills. Then also 2 guidelines were adopted that were developed by the Implementation and Compliance Committee. They relate to insurance, bond and guarantee and to transit and transboundary movement. And then also a practical manual on transboundary movement. There's a lot now happening in the intersessional period. Many small intersessional working groups have been set up. So just some examples, technical guidelines are being updated, once again on POPs waste, but also the work on the technical guidelines on plastic waste is continuing. Also working on e-waste, the waste lead acid batteries, used and waste pneumatic tires. New guidelines are developed for other waste batteries. Then also the SIWG, the Small Intersessional Working Group, is continuing on the strategic framework to make some recommendations on how to improve it. There's also work on how to improve the functioning of the prior informed consent procedure. Also, work is continuing on electronic approaches, on amendment proposals made by the EU that relate to legal clarity of the convention. And then also here can see the 4 partnerships that are set up under the Basel Convention that are continuing their work. Under the Rotterdam Convention, the most notable development has also been an amendment to the convention. We have 2 new chemicals that have been listed in the convention. These are decabromodiphenyl ether and then before its salts and before related compounds. The amendments will enter into force on the 22nd of October, and then these chemicals are also subject to the PIC procedure, which means that all parties are invited to inform each other on whether they wish to continue importing these chemicals. Also important, the Rotterdam Convention now has a compliance committee, and the first program of work of this committee was adopted by the COP. Under the Stockholm Convention, we also have amendments to the convention. New chemicals were listed, so perfluorohexanoic sulfonic acid, BFHXS, its salts and related compounds. So these are listed in Annex A to the convention without specific exemptions. So while under Rotterdam, listing really just implies that a prior informed consent procedure is implemented, in the case of Stockholm, the listing really means that these chemicals may no longer be produced, used, imported, or exported by parties under the convention. So we are really moving towards a phase out of these harmful chemicals. Also, work was conducted on others of the chemicals that are included in the convention. For example, on DDT, there's an intersessional process set up in order to move to a stage where DDT is completely phased out. Also, work is quite important in the area of PCB, because we're getting very close to the deadline set in the Convention of 2025, where all use of PCB should be eliminated. So this is quite an important area of work right now. And then also a couple of exemptions that were in place for chemicals listed under the Convention have been stopped. So also there we're slowly moving towards a complete phase out of these chemicals. Stockholm also adopted a couple of guidelines and guidance documents, and it also provided guidance to the financial mechanism, because the Stockholm Convention has a financial mechanism with the principal entity of the Global Environment Facility. And here you can see an overview of the main joint decisions that have been adopted. So we have a decision on cooperation with the Minamata Convention, which is very much mirroring the decisions that the Minamata Convention has taken earlier, so requesting our Executive Secretary to continue the cooperation with the Minamata Convention and to implement shared services on a cost recovery basis. We also have decisions on international cooperation and coordination, which are asking us, or the Executive Secretary, to participate in the implementation of the UNEA resolutions that Monica mentioned previously, and of course of particular interest being the work on developing a new plastic treaty, and then also on the science policy panel. We also have been requested to continue cooperation with SICAM. And then also importantly, we have now adopted full-fledged programs of work and budget for this biennium, because at our online segment, we only had adopted interim budgets. And here on this slide, you can just see that we also had many other events going on. So we had a forum on plastic, we have side events, we had a illumination of the Palais des Nations, there was a promotional video released by Pierce Brosnan and his son to raise awareness on the plastic work under the Basel Convention. And then just to mention briefly that there's a lot of going on in follow-up to that COP. So on many of the areas of work, we're seeking input from parties and observers, seeking information, but also nominations to be part of the various intersessional working groups. So please have a look at the website where you can find the full letters asking you for information and participation in the intersessional work. Looking then ahead to our next COP, the parties actually at the face-to-face segment had received an offer from the government of Bahamas to host the COPs in 2023. And we had a good cooperation with the government working on the host country arrangement. But unfortunately, last month, we were informed by the permanent mission of the Bahamas that they are not in a position to host us, and that the offer is thus no longer standing. So we had to quickly make some alternative arrangements for our COPs, and fortunately we could secure the Geneva International Conference Center for nearly exactly the same period. So it's from 1st to 12th of May next year that we will be meeting here in Geneva once again. The meetings will not include a high-level segment because the BRS COPs usually have a high-level segment every second time they meet. It is the bureaus that will be working on the tentative schedule of work, where you can see which convention is supposed to meet when. But invitation letters will already be sent out in November this year, and you can expect a nomination deadline of about 20 January of next year. So please do look out at the end of the year for the invitation letters for the COPs. We're also planning to hold the usual regional preparatory meetings, tentative schedule for now in March 2023. And then just to give you a little overview that there are a lot of subsidiary bodies meeting under the BRS conventions now in the next few weeks and months, all of these having to meet between the two COPs. So these are kind of our major standing subsidiary bodies, but also a lot of other expert groups and working groups are meeting. Under the Basel Convention, we have the Implementation and Compliance Committee, which is tasked with assisting parties to comply with their obligations under the convention, but also facilitating implementation and compliance in a more general manner. They're meeting in November this year here in Geneva. And because of the short intersessional period, nearly all of these committees had a bit to prioritize their work. So here you can see what the ICC is planning to look at, number of specific submissions from a few countries, and also some general issues of implementation and compliance. They will also prepare their draft work program for the next biennium. And because the Rotterdam Convention also has a compliance committee, these two committees can cooperate after have been tasked, and they're actually holding a joint session. The open-ended working group under the Basel Convention is a more general subsidiary body that helps the COP with advancing policy, technical, legal, and institutional aspects of its work. So it's a bit broader, and it is meeting for 3 days in February, also here in Geneva. The final agenda is still to be developed by the Bureau, but here you can see a few highlights that are most likely going to be taken up. Once again, here also we have to prioritize given the short period of time and the 3-day meeting. So probably they will look at the strategic framework, improving of the PIC procedure, and then a number of technical guidelines, and also the work on legal clarity. Under the Rotterdam Convention, we have the Chemical Review Committee, which is the body entrusted with reviewing notifications of final regulatory action and severely hazardous pesticide formulations, and whether these get added to the convention. So this is the body reviewing chemicals to be proposed for adding to the convention. We're meeting as of this Sunday, actually, in Rome. There are 2 chemicals that are at the final stage of the review. Those are iprodion and turbofos. So provided that the CRC finalizes the work on these chemicals, these will be considered for listing at the COP next year. And then we have a whole array of chemicals that are still in the first step of the review. So they are not making it to the next COP, but at the earliest, the following COP. And you can see them here on the slide. And this is also a prioritization. Many more chemicals are actually waiting for review by the CRC. And then, as mentioned, we have now a compliance committee under the Rotterdam Convention, which will hold its very first meeting in November here in Geneva. It doesn't have specific submissions to consider yet, but also a number of general issues of compliance, which it will be looking at. Under the Stockholm Convention, we have the Persistent Organic Pollutants Review Committee. So that is a bit the equivalent to the Rotterdam Chemical Review Committee, and they actually meet back-to-back in Rome, also in September. And the POPs Review Committee looks at these chemicals that are proposed for listing under the Stockholm Convention. There you have 2 chemicals that are already at the final stage and that can go on to the next COP if the work on them is concluded. Those are Decloran Plus and UV328. So these 2 are in the final stage. Then we have 3 chemicals that are in the second out of 3 stages. So that is chlorpyrifos, then some specific chlorinated paraffins, and then long-chain perfluorocarboxylic acids. And then also the POPs Review Committee also undertakes a number of other technical work that is tasked to it by the Conference of the Parties on chemicals that are already included in the convention, but where some technical aspects are being reviewed by the POPs Review Committee. And then this is an overview. Actually, everything that's happening, not everything is planned yet, but this is pretty much what we are planning between now and the next COPs. So there really is a lot going on, and we look forward to working with you on all these activities. Thank you very much, Monica.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It's I think I should start by congratulating the entire team of the Secretariat, but also parties to the Basel, Stockholm, and Rotterdam conventions for the excellent triple COP in June. This is an extremely work you are doing, and irrespective even of the COVID circumstances and this tight timeline, you are keeping up the pace. And that's important because the world does not stay still. There are also external developments, and all the work you do keeps also momentum for the chemicals and waste, and also make a difference on the ground. So congratulations for that, and good luck also for the efforts you are now undertaking towards the next triple COPs. It must be a really a heavy lift for the Secretariat, so good luck. And also for parties to prepare, but seeing the ownership of the parties at the Bureau's COP, I have a full confidence that the next COP will be as successful, even though it's not held in what I can say an more exotic place. I think Geneva then nevertheless will be very good place for keeping the focus and having the results you are aiming at. So thank you so much for that presentation. Let me move now to back to Monica McDevitt. Monica, you are invited to present activities of Pierre. Thank you. So it's a different order. That's okay. Let me move then to Pierre Quilblier, Program Officer, Chemicals and Health Branch of UNEP, to present on the strategic approach to international chemicals management. You are fresh from having the important meeting that was held just end of August, so we are eager to hear information on the progress achieved in that meeting, but also what's the next step to create a beyond 2020 framework for chemicals and waste. So Pierre, over to you, and you have 10 minutes, and I think I have been quite generous to previous speakers, so it's a small exceeding of time is allowed, but nevertheless, please try to be more or less on time. Thank you, and over to you, Pierre.
Thank you very much, Monica, and I will try to be as comprehensive as SciChem should be as possible. And I would like to express our SciChem coordinator's deepest regrets for not being with us today, but she had a conflict in her schedule that could not be resolved. So a pleasure to be with you this morning, and thank you for providing us with an opportunity to present you the outcomes of the fourth meeting of this intersessional process, considering the strategic approach and sound management of chemicals and waste beyond 2020. Could we have perhaps the PowerPoint? Oh, thank you. We gathered in Bucharest. I'm sorry. Yes. So we gathered in Bucharest at the end of August, from the 29th to 2nd of September, with a very good level of participations, 280 participants in presence, plus others virtually. Representing member states, industry, civil society, academia, and youth. Just to mention that prior to meeting in Bucharest at the end of August, we held a series of regional meetings in order to best prepare our SciChem stakeholders for this meeting. As you know, we had to go through a long interruptions since IP3, and so the work had to continue to progress on the negotiations, on the discussions to develop this new framework. And so a number of work was developed on a virtual manner with virtual working groups that were created to advance the work. And the outcomes of these virtual working groups had to be also considered to a certain degree. So the difficulty and the delicate task of this Bucharest meeting was to present as a basis for the discussion the outcome documents from IP3, but also to take into considerations the outcomes of the work of the virtual working groups. So that was a important task ahead of our co-chairs, who decided, in light of this amount of work, to create 3 thematic groups, and with the main objective of this meeting was to come with one single outcome document. And I would say at the outset that this mission was accomplished and was a big relief to all those involved in making progress on our discussion. So the first thematic groups was focusing on all the issues related to vision, scopes, principles, and approach, strategic objectives, and targets. That was a heavy mandate with the objective to develop consolidated text, specifically text on vision, scope, principles and approaches, and strategic objectives, and consider, as well as possible, proposing a limited set of priority targets in support of the strategic objectives. All this was work on the targets specifically done within the virtual working groups, and there was a lot of targets, and considering the limited means that we have, there was really a need to define a bucket of targets that could be associated with the strategic objectives. And we could say that much progress was made in the discussion in all the 5 strategic objectives, with also good progress made in the identifications of 28 high priority targets. So you see that with regards to 5 strategic objectives, you have approximately 5, little more corresponding targets. And the 3 new options proposed on the visions that have been welcomed as the basis for further work. It was agreed that in light also of the importance of indicators, that there was not enough time to enter into substantial discussion on indicators, and that further work will have to be conducted on developing further indicators and framework on how to consider indicators within the intersessional process. And with regards to to thematic groups 2 on institutional arrangements, addressing issues of concerns and linkages with the science policy panel. Also here, much progress was achieved. It was a very heavy work also there. The mandate was to focus on institutional arrangements addressing issues of concerns and any linkages with the future science policy panel, the mechanisms to support the implementations, any outstanding issues, and consider recommendations for next steps and possible further intersessional work. Progress well made, well achieved also in this regard on all the institutional arrangements, related issues, including several functions of the governing bodies and the bureaus. Only the secretariat issues were not addressed because of a lack of time, but that should not be a major difficulty to be expected in the next round of discussion. Agreement was reached also on the linkages with the future science policy panel, but no consensus on how to invite the science policy panel to undertake work for the conference consideration. Finally, the last thematic group 3 on implementing measures, including capacity building and financial considerations. The mandate was mechanisms to support capacity building, financial considerations, deliberation including funding proposals and approaches to support capacity building. Progress well achieved with a number of brackets being removed and text agreed. And there were a number of interesting proposals for additional text, including from the Africa Group on the Global Coordinated Fee, ICCA on capacity building platform, Iran on the establishment of a data bank, Switzerland on a voluntary peer review mechanisms, and ITUC on the creation of an international fund. The meeting was adjourned to February 23, with the location yet to be determined. As I said at the beginning, the main objective of the meeting was achieved as we succeed in having one single outcome documents. I think we could note also the number of workshops that were held and technical briefings that were held prior to the meeting. And I think there was a general support for strengthening, highlighting the importance of this multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder nature of SAICM that needs to be reinforced. And we can note here the important work and the example, perhaps, that was demonstrated by the IOMC in leading this work and emphasizing the importance of this comprehensive aspect that needs to involve all sectors and stakeholders of SAICM. Our ICCM president, Ms. Anita Breyer, formally announced the convening of ICCM 5 from 25 to 29 September 2023. This is in 1 year. This is our mission to go and to achieve a most interesting and satisfactory framework by this date in Bonn in February. Just a little reminder on those on these important questions of emerging issues and issues of concerns, emerging policy issues and issues of concerns. We have a survey that is online, and we would very much welcome any additional responses to this survey and encourage you to, the deadline was on 2nd September. In light of the good level of response, but not yet fully satisfactory, we can extend a little bit this deadline, and we would welcome further inputs from all SAICM stakeholders in these important issues related to emerging policy and issues of concern. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pierre, and thank you so much. It was, I think, excellent presentation, and we all got the flavor of what has happened, what's the progress, and the fact that the meeting was adjourned and it will then continue deliberation February next year sounds like a very good plan forward. So you can make most of the time between now and the next ICCM meeting. So also we all should know the dates. This will be 25th to 29th September for ICCM 5. And we wish, of course, from, I would say, from Chemicals MEA side, where we are definitely following this process and engaging, all the best luck to your team, but also to parties negotiating this new framework. With that, let me move to the Monica. Now, I think this is I'm correct, inviting you to take the floor, and you alluded already to some topics you will be presenting related to activities of the branch. So you're welcome to continue. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Monica. And I just want to confirm with the organizers that they have my presentation, or shall I share it from my computer? There it is. Great, thank you very much. Okay, I did allude to a few things at the beginning, but let me just give you a few updates. I want to focus on a couple of areas in particular. Go back to the original slide, please. I'm just going to talk about some updates here. So I did allude already to the medium-term strategy of 2022-2025, and that UNEP will be delivering its work through a number of programs that will focus on key aspects of chemicals and pollution action, which is one of the thematic sub-programs of UNEP, together with climate action and climate nature under the triple planetary crisis that UNEP Executive Director has identified. Through the development of these three programs, UNEP will focus on chemicals, pollution, and health, on leveraging and promoting circularity in high-impact sectors, and on transitioning to zero waste. In the context of its work on chemicals, pollution, and health, UNEP will seek to maximize synergies across its existing and future streams of work on the sound management of chemicals, waste management, and pollution prevention and control, and to amplify its impact by further strengthening partnerships. In addition to promoting an effective science policy basis and enabling policy environments and core capacities, attention will be placed on promoting the engagement of high-impact sector industries and working closely with the rest of the UN system and key partners to address all key dimensions of chemicals and pollution action in the context of sustainable development. So in this broad context, UNEP will continue to focus on the environment and health nexus, a thread that cuts across all its work on chemicals in the broader pollution agenda. And finally, besides our work in support of countries and stakeholders for the implementation to the BRS and Minamata Convention, UNEP's contributions to the recent IP4 meeting, which Pierre just so ably highlighted for you, including through IOMC Inc. papers on integrated chemicals and waste management, I wanted to highlight today a selection of work areas from the branch, and again, to provide some emphasis to the special program. Next slide. Let's start off with the issues of concern. In response to UNEA Resolution 4/8, UNEP prepared an assessment report on issues of concern, chemicals and waste issues posing risks to human health and the environment in September 2020. UNEA Resolution 5/7 welcomed the report and requested UNEP to seek stakeholder views on future work and potential areas of international action and to prepare an analysis for UNEA 6. UNEP is planning short technical briefings on the issues of concern in the fourth quarter of 2022, followed by a launch of the consultation of stakeholders on further work and possible international action on these issues. Okay, next slide, please. On chemicals and plastics, we've prepared a short video, so you don't have to listen to me drone on for far too long. So we have a short video raising awareness on chemicals and plastics. So if I could ask the organizers to click on the bottom right-hand one, here we go.
All plastics are made of chemicals. Over 10,000 chemicals have so far been associated with plastics. From these, over 2,400 are of potential concern to our health and our environment. These include chemicals that can mimic, block, or alter the actions of hormones, reduce fertility, and damage the nervous system. Harmful chemicals can be released from plastic throughout its entire life cycle. We must close the plastic tap, phase out unnecessary and major additives of concern, promote and develop safe and sustainable alternatives. Together, we can beat pollution.
Great, thanks for that. There is a longer version of this video, and you can access the longer version on our website. Oh, we don't have to play it though, because it's 3 minutes long and I won't have enough time to talk. Okay, let's go to antimicrobial resistance. Next slide. Great, thank you. UNEP is a member of the now quadripartite alliance on One Health. And this is something that UNEP has formally joined this year. It used to be the tripartite, now it's quadripartite with the full inclusion of UNEP. The alliance comprises of FAO, UNEP, WHO, and the World Organization for Animal Health. As part of the quadripartite, UNEP continues to focus on the environmental dimension of antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, for which pollution plays a key role. In particular, it is impacted by biological and chemical pollutants, whose main sources are pharmaceutical manufacturing processes and discharges, use of antimicrobials, manure and irrigation in intensive crop and animal production, and waste, often from healthcare facilities through poor sanitation, waste and sewage and fecal waste, and runoff from intensive animal and crop production. The following are highlights of upcoming developments regarding antimicrobial resistance. The third Ministerial Conference on Antimicrobial Resistance in Muscat, the 24th to 25th of November, is hosted and organized by the government of Oman. This third in a series, the conference now fully embraces the One Health approach by extending the invitation to ministers of environment. Quadripartite Joint Secretariat on Antimicrobial Resistance is supporting the government of Oman in the preparations. 4 parallel sessions are planned to discuss integrated surveillance, research and development, political action and funding, and country implementation, each led by one of the quadripartite organizations. UNEP is leading the session on country implementation. During the first day of the Ministerial Conference on the 24th of November, UNEP Spotlight Report on Environmental Dimensions of AMR will be launched. In addition, the antimicrobial resistance is on the agenda of the resumed 18th session of the African Ministerial Conference for the Environment, or AMCEN, in Dakar, Senegal, that's happening this week. The inclusion of AMR for ministerial dialogue at AMCEN is a significant achievement to improve understanding and enact policy related to environmental dimensions of AMR. To support these discussions, a discussion paper was prepared as part of the meeting documents. AMCEN is also looking at issues of open waste and burning and waste management in Africa on their agenda. So again, important to UNEP and to this particular branch. Next, we have the quadripartite organizations who are undertaking several efforts to continue strengthening the governance foundations, the knowledge basis, and awareness of antimicrobial resistance with an increasingly strong presence of the environmental dimension. These efforts include, among other things, working toward the establishment of an AMR partnership platform, one of the envisaged global governance structures, which should be launched during World Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week from 18 to 24 November 2022, the creation of technical groups on integrated surveillance and on the economic case to advance the work with worldwide experts, organizing the first global summit for regulators of human and animal medicines to take place in Geneva in March 2023, and organizing the AMR Global Leaders Group information sessions. The AMR Multi-Partner Trust Fund continues to support countries with 4 global projects and 10 country projects in 6 countries about to start. The 6th International Symposium on the Environmental Dimension of Antibiotic Resistance will happen in September 2022, just in a couple of weeks, where UNEP will be present. So there's a lot of work happening on AMR. You can see there's a lot of momentum and a lot of work is being done that's very much relevant to the kind of work that is being undertaken in the chemicals and waste agenda. I'd like to switch now to the special program and provide an update on the special program and spend a little bit of time on it. So let's go to the next slide. The special program was established in 2015 to support institutional strengthening at the national level for the sound management of chemicals and waste and to enhance the implementation of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, the Minamata Convention, and the Strategic Approach to International Chemicals Management, or SICHEM. Earlier this year, UNEA decided to extend the duration of the special program for an additional period of 5 years. As a result, the special program will be open to receive contributions and applications for funding until September 2027 and to disperse funds up until 2030. The special program's decision-making body is its executive board, consisting of 10 members balanced between representatives of donor and recipient countries, and operations are financed by voluntary contributions. And to date, the total contributions amount to around $32.8 million US. The special program operates through periodic calls for applications from governments that are requesting funding for projects. The applications are appraised against established eligibility and evaluation criteria before a decision on funding is taken by the executive board. To date, 5 rounds of funding have been completed, with 66 projects approved so far, as shown on the map in this slide. The 5th round of projects were approved earlier this year. The 6th round of applications closed on the 12th of August, and the applications are currently being reviewed. Next slide. This slide provides a little more information on the special program's operations. The total amount approved under the individual country projects to date is $17.8 million US, and the bar chart on the left shows a regional breakdown of that commitment. The special program does have a requirement for co-financing, and beneficiary contributions under approved projects amount to a total of $9 million to date. Support from the special program is available for developing countries, taking into account the special needs of least developed countries and small island developing states, and for countries with economies in transition. And you can see the breakdown on the slide across the portfolio of approved projects. The special program currently has 12 donors whose contributions to date are indicated at the bottom of this slide next to their flags. And of course, new donors are always welcome. Next slide. The special program was established to support institutional strengthening. The special program's terms of reference are defined as enhancing the sustainable institutional capacity of governments to develop, adopt, monitor, and enforce policy, legislation, and regulation, as well as gain access to finance and other needs. If you look at this slide, you'll see that it sets out some of the key attributes of the special program. So going from clockwise from the top, you'll see that the special program projects are country-driven, taking into account the national development strategies, plans, and priorities of each country. The projects are intended to improve chemicals and waste management and to mitigate the negative impact of chemicals and waste on human health and the environment. The special program should facilitate multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder cooperation, including with the private sector. They should foster an enabling environment to facilitate the implementation of the BRS conventions, the Minamata Convention, and the SAICM through a cross-cutting approach. They should foster, the special program should also promote implementation of strategies, policies, and programs for the sound management of chemicals and waste with a focus on sustainability. The special program projects should aim to build long-term institutional capacity for the sound management of chemicals and waste. And the special program projects should have a strong gender mainstreaming component and should also address safeguard issues such as taking into consideration the needs of Indigenous peoples. So you can see there's a very broad scope of what the special program actually attains to achieve or strives to attain. And so that, I hope that gives you a really good picture of the scope of the special project. How do we monitor this? Let's go to the next slide on the project database. The Special Program Secretariat has developed a really interactive and quite a cool tool, a database that actually details the approved projects to date. And you can see that the link is available. I've seen it just put up in the chat box now, but it's available on this slide. And it does allow you access to see how all the projects individually are running and some information about them. We built this as a Power BI tool, which allows users to see an overview portfolio and to drill down into very specific projects or types of interventions. And the tool also shows reported progress on the projects. So it's a very deep and a very rich source of information. And I would strongly urge you to go and browse through it and take a look at some of the work of the special program. Next slide. In the next two slides, I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of the project achievements to date. I'm not going to read everything, that will take up quite a bit of time, but you can see that a lot of really good work has been done in terms of creating national inventories of chemicals, in supporting the coordination mechanism to respond to emergencies with chemical substances. In Kyrgyzstan, the development of national legislative framework, and all the way to Iraq and Belarus, looking at chemical security strategy and creating infrastructure for ratification and implementation of the Rotterdam Convention. So the institutional strengthening is quite wide, and each country has to respond to its own priorities, which is illustrated here. Next slide. On this slide, you can see more country project achievements. In Moldova, a framework law on chemicals, including the creation of Chemicals Agency, all the way through to China analyzing its regulatory gaps, and Afghanistan establishing a national chemicals unit and developing a management plan. So the work has really been quite comprehensive and quite wide-reaching. And my final slide. A special thanks to all of our donors to really acknowledge their generous contribution over the years to the special program, without whom none of this would be possible. And with that, my final slides. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and I'd be very happy to take some questions and comments in the question and answer period of the program today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Monica. It was worthwhile to a little bit extend time of your presentation to hear the good summary of progress achieved with the special program. If I may start with the last topic you presented, and I also noted with interest the project database. I mean, this kind of databases are extremely important to demonstrate the impacts of the projects and also increase visibility of what's being achieved within the special program. I have also noted especially the work by UNEP on antimicrobial resistance within the quadripartite cooperation. These are all very difficult words, but this is really a challenge globally, also to, most of all, to human health, and this requires so much more work and attention, and I'm very grateful to UNEP for doing that. I've heard of it already, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, and that was then considered an emerging issue in some parts of the environmental collaboration, but this deserves a lot of attention and work. So it's very good that UNEP has taken now a very active role in this regard with other partners. But with that, let me move to the last but not least, the presentation by Kevin Helps that will complement now or complete the section of presentations on progress and development. And this is, Kevin is a principal officer responsible for guiding the preparation related to Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste Prevention and Prevention of Pollution. We know, we have heard from various sources that from the UNEP website, most of all, that there will be now a first session of the meeting of the open-ended working group, and then there will be a second session, the first session already on 6th of October, and the work will continue next year. So Kevin, please tell us about this arrangement, but also overall about what's the purpose, the progress, and where we stand on this extremely important issue right now. So Kevin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Monica, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody online and in the meeting. I've prepared a few slides to try and demystify where we are in this entire process. So I will quickly run through some procedural issues, some process issues, and then also touch upon what we've been doing since I was appointed roughly 6 months ago by Inga to take this on. So if we can take the next slide, please. So as Monica mentioned, this is the Chemicals, Waste and Prevention of Pollution panel. This is the third such body as a global panel or platform to be established, reflecting the 3 global crises. You know, you will probably be aware of the IPCC and also the IPBES, which are very mature in both of their establishment and the work that they do. And the work of this or this new body to be established will largely call upon the experience from the process to establish the other 2, but also some lessons learned from their operation. Next slide, please. So I'm going to quickly give you a provisional timetable for the open-ended working group as we currently understand it. And as Monica mentioned, I'll touch upon the need for 2 sessions of the first meeting. I'll also give you a roundup of our process for stakeholder engagement thus far, and also our budget situation, and then just highlight a few possible bumps in the road which we've identified moving forward. Next slide, please. So the resolution 5/8, which came out in early March this year, basically sets a requirement for the work of the open-ended working group to start in 2022. Now, my legal experts here at UNEP says that that means we have to have a meeting to kick that process off. Now, there was a plan to hold a 4-day meeting in October in Bangkok, but a number of member states voiced their concern that the process would not be ready in terms of establishing a bureau, in terms of nominating a chair, and in terms of having substantive papers developed which could be discussed. So it was decided to split the first meeting into 2 sessions, the first of which would be a procedural meeting, allowing member states more time to nominate national focal points, to put forward potential bureaus membership, to expand the bureau from the original 5 to an expanded bureau of 10. That's 2 per of the UNEA regions. And to adopt UNEA rules of procedure as it is a subsidiary body to UNEA. The second session would then be delayed into 2023, and that would be a more substantive meeting. So session 1 is now confirmed as a 1-day hybrid to be held in Nairobi on October the 6th. And invitation letters have gone out to member states for that, and we're in the process of sending out invitation to the major groups, and also the bodies which are affiliated and accredited through BRS, Minamata, and SciChem. We're also looking to potentially expand that accreditation, proxy accreditation process through to WHO affiliated bodies and also ILO affiliated bodies. So we're examining how we can do that. The second session is now confirmed following messages from Bangkok 2 weeks ago from the government of Thailand that we would hold it at the ESCAP venue January the 30th to February the 3rd. In terms of future meetings, we do have interest expressed from government of Brazil, and this was confirmed 2 weeks ago at the IP4 meeting for SciChem, that they still are interested in provisionally hosting the second main meeting for the process in October of 2023. And we gather that Switzerland is still interested in potentially hosting a 3rd meeting, which would be in mid-2024. All of this provisional timetable is for discussion, obviously, and we will aim to have enough time left in 2024, in the latter half of 2024, to hold the intergovernmental meeting at which the options for the new panel will be discussed, established, and hopefully move forward. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the first session, the 1-day session for open-ended working group 1 meeting will basically be a very, I think, process-orientated, procedural-orientated meeting where we establish the 10-member bureau and also appoint a chair and co-chairs to that bureau. Now, this we are following up in some regions, and I understand that there will be discussions at the AMSEN meeting, which is currently happening this week, where we will be encouraging member states from some of the regions, including the Africa region, to give us their national focal point nominations and also to organize themselves on a regional basis in order to get 2 nominations from the region to be confirmed at the meeting October 6th. We also need to follow up with a couple of other regions, but there have been some bilateral regional discussions at BRS and also at IP4 to try and encourage regions to come forward with their bureau nominations. We will also look to confirm the adoption of the rules of procedure for the open-ended working group as the UNEA rules, as it is a subsidiary body. And we'll give member states, obviously, and potentially some observers the opportunity to make some opening remarks at that meeting. We would also look to potentially hold a bureau meeting, and also in the fringes of, or at lunchtime at that first session, but also perhaps the next day, where we can sit together and actually define exactly the level of involvement that the bureau members want to have in this process moving forward. Bearing in mind that different bureaus have different levels of, for different bodies have different levels of engagement, and we really want to have a strong bureau with a lot of engagement in this process moving forward. Moving forward then to the Bangkok meeting, which sorry, go back to the slide, where we will look at the tabling of various options papers. And bearing in mind that this, the role of the Secretariat is not to prescribe anything, it is to provide options for member states to consider. We are currently working on papers looking at options for the scope of the new panel, the functions of the new panel, and the rules of procedure for the new panel. And I'm sure that when the Bureau is established in October and that the chair is named, that they will want to have more of an input into the development of these documents. So these are very much drafting sessions at the moment that we're holding. Now moving forward to the next slide. Okay, so stakeholder engagement is very important to re-emphasize that this is a member state driven process, and it needs to be inclusive, transparent, impartial, and objective. We also need to learn from others in terms of the processes which have been followed by IPCC and IPBES and others, such as potentially IRP, Montreal Protocol, WHO Science Panel, and other scientific panels which exist out there, to learn from them as to how we can streamline this process. This is very important because we only have effectively just 2 years to establish a body equivalent to IPBES, and that process took 7 years. It's also a very complex landscape in terms of the interactions of the various bodies and partners which are engaged in this whole area of chemicals, of waste, and of pollution. We also need to ensure that we involve key partners such as WHO, who are actually named in the resolution, and also other IOMC member organizations and other partners. The resolution does state that this is an interdisciplinary process. So we do need to make sure that we touch upon issues such as labor, health, and agriculture potentially, who are key partners within the IOMC organizations. We also need to look at what we mean by science. Traditionally, science means natural sciences, but I think increasingly, based on the last report from IPBES, the importance of economics and social science and humanities has come forward, and so we're looking to engage in a truly interdisciplinary manner across these areas. Member states obviously have a key role, and something which is coming to the fore is the need to cut across line ministries and to make this truly, can you go back please? To cut across the various line ministries to ensure policy integration at national level. So how does the work of the new body, once it's established, not just feed into the environmental dimension, but also the social and the economic dimension, to allow member states to then make their own policy decision based on the objective science which is put forward by the new body. We also need to engage with academia and civil society, and also a lesson from the other two processes is to engage with industry in the widest sense from the start of the process. They've both come forward with saying that, in some respects, they left the engagement with the industry sector a little bit late. And in this particular area of chemicals, waste, and pollution, a lot of the scientific data is actually held by industry. So we need to find a common narrative and a common language whereby industry is brought in to share the relevant information at the appropriate time. Moving on, please. So we've used the opportunity from existing busy timetable of meetings, such as the BRS COP, the SciCam IP4, and we will also be involved in the INC for plastics, to have as much interaction with member states and with other sectors and other major groups in the fringes of other meetings, so that we are able to have as much consultation as possible. We're also embarked on starting a series of webinars. One was held in late July. We're planning one in late September, whereby we'll be offering time for IPCC, IPBES, IRP, Montreal Protocol, and the WHO, and possibly LERTAP, to come forward and explain how their processes work, because many of the stakeholders that we find in this constituency of chemicals, waste, and pollution are not necessarily familiar with how a panel functions and what it produces. So we need to demystify that and have a clear understanding of what is it we're aiming to establish. We'll also look provisionally to hold another one of these webinars in November, and then obviously once the Bureau and the chair are established, we'll be involving them more in the design and membership and targeting of these events. We're also looking to send out a member state questionnaire and a major group questionnaire, looking to seek some clarification moving forward to inform the papers which we'll be developing on issues such as scope, functions, and rules of procedure for the new body. And so, this is an ongoing process of ensuring that we have as much evidence from member states and other stakeholders to inform the development of the papers moving forward. Next slide, please. So in terms of budget, this process is not a cheap process, as you can imagine. The meetings are incredibly expensive. The process is expensive, and sincere thanks to our sponsors, our governments who are coming forward with substantial contributions to this process, especially Switzerland, UK, France, and Germany so far. And a decision needs to be made as to how these funds are prioritized. We've provisionally, in discussion with member states and the governments concerned, identified the need to move the process forward and fund the holding of the meetings, certainly until the January meeting, to move this process forward in as quick a way as possible. But at the back of our mind, we need to look at the cost of operating this process in terms of secretariat costs. At the moment, UNEP is covering the bulk of this, and moving forward, we do need to have a sustainable footing for the cost of the secretariat. Next slide, please. So possible bumps in the road. We are getting low country focal point nominations from certain regions, and this results in communications difficulty, because we then go through our CPR route, through UNEA routes, to communicate with member states. So it is important for countries to give us their nomination and their focal points. Similarly, it's important that regions work together to put forward their bureau membership, so that after the meeting in October, we have a functioning and active bureau to support the secretariat and the process moving forward. And at the moment, we're focusing on available budget to move the process, so little funding is available to cover secretariat costs, as I say. Next slide. So thanks to everybody for their support over the last 6 months. It's been a very steep learning curve, and I have to give a special thanks to the personnel within the Chemicals and Health branch for their devotion and time that they've put in. I have to give a second vote of thanks to the member states that are supporting the process moving forward. And we are making progress, and with your continued support, we will be able to establish this body in the timeline indicated in the resolution. So thank you all for the time. I hope that was quick enough, Monica.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Well, you followed the pattern of previous speakers, meaning we are quite fair with giving time to everyone. And I think it is now rather clear how the events are lining up and then are aiming to finalize with intergovernmental meeting late 2024. I also note with quite an interest on my side and in organizing webinars. You're also reaching out to other panels than only IPPC and IPBS. Of course, these are famous, and in terms of magnitude of an effort, this is quite comparable, but there are also others, as you mentioned earlier, LRTAP and ozone examples, so that sounds quite interesting. Colleagues and excellencies and colleagues, we have basically 8 to 10 minutes for questions and answers to allow to hear closing remarks from Michel Chiren. So I would only allow for a quick round of questions and answers. And I would like to first ask those present in the room if you have something you would like to ask or perhaps flag using this Q&A session. And I'm also sure you can contact each of the speakers outside this event if you would like to follow up in more in depth or have some maybe very specific questions to be asked. So let me take a moment to see if there is any particular question in the room. Doesn't seem to be so. I know we have received some questions through the chat, so perhaps I would then turn to those questions. And I have at least the question I have received, they will be to BRS colleagues. So perhaps I would try to lump together the two. They're on a different topic. One of the colleagues is curious about whether there has been any increased demand for handling batteries waste and how this is being enforced. And the second question concerned the Rotterdam Convention COP10, an update on PFOA and PFAS. And the question is that, is it also, is there a consideration that there are also these chemicals traded as part of articles or products, and such as, for example, PFAS are applied to cookware clothes, and then you would have this product traded. So what's consideration is given by Rotterdam Convention to this issue? I hope that I got the question right. So I would then let you to decide who would like to answer these two questions. And then we see how much time there is still to possibly take up some additional questions. Okay. Thank you so much. So please go ahead.
Right. So if I got the question right, the question was whether there has been an increase in the handling of the waste battery in recent years. The quantities of transboundary movement of waste is being reported in the national reporting. We could check the statistics of whether there has been any increase since then. We haven't conducted any specific research on whether there has been any increase in the waste battery recently, but we have information that recently the more of the batteries has been used in many applications, including in vehicles, and so it is expected that such waste being increased. Second question related to PFOS and PFOA. Could you please repeat that again? Sorry. Yes, thank you very much for that question. The trade under the Rotterdam Convention relates to chemicals that is being traded, and as you have seen, PFOS has been added to the Rotterdam Convention a few years ago, and PFOA, salts and PFOA related compounds were just listed at the previous COP10, and will enter into force on 22nd of October this year. So those two chemicals are very closely related. They both belong to PFAS. But in terms of the prior informed consent procedure, this relates mainly to the chemicals that are traded. The how do you call that? The definition of articles that contains those chemicals is up to the countries to interpret and define. But one example to raise here is chemicals contained in firefighting foam, aqueous filming foam. These could be considered as articles or products, depending on countries, and they contain PFOS or PFOA-related compounds. And so it is the countries that could inform when such a mixture of chemicals being traded for the purpose of exchanging information. This could be communicated to the receiving country in accordance with the Rotterdam Convention. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for the answer. And let me then maybe quickly again check in the room if there is any other question. I have to say I have one more question, which perhaps I will read just to recognize that the question has been posed, but I'm inclined to move on with our program and to give a floor to our colleague Michelle. So let me read the question just perhaps to tease out what kind of considerations are being made, and I would encourage them to the colleague to approach the BRS again Secretariat directly to get maybe more information. So the question posed is that do you happen to have a mind map which showcases connections, dependencies between the work of Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm conventions, for example, for PFAS? I think it's a rather big question, so perhaps good I'm not putting you on spot, but this is about how all these conventions together work and then whether there's a complete view where the three of them are heading. But with that question, I'm really happy to move on with our program, and I would like to invite Michelle Chiren, Waste and Chemicals, focal point of the Global Affairs section of the Swiss Federal Office for the Environment, to offer us some reflection and remarks. And we have heard from David his more historical perspective that there hasn't been so much level of attention to chemicals and waste as we observe now. So I'm sure you would also from your side have some observation to offer in this regard. So Michelle, over to you.
Thank you very much, Monica. And on behalf of the Federal Office for the Environment, many thanks to the GEN for organizing this event. And thanks to all of the speakers today for the wealth of information that you have provided during this briefing. It's very useful to have this concise information on so many different processes. I myself, I am indeed involved in the processes that we're discussing today, and I have attended many of the meetings that were mentioned today. I don't have, David, the experience that you have to put it all in the historical perspective, and it's very interesting to have your views. But I, from my end, can say that indeed very much is going on these days with the chemicals and waste cluster, and rightly so. It happens because it is really needed to take this action. So from our end, we also would like to congratulate Monica McDevitt on the upcoming retirement. Thanks, Monica, for your commitment and for bringing in your knowledge and expertise in the chemicals and waste cluster and the Environment House here in Geneva. The UNEP team here plays, of course, a crucial role in many international processes, and in particular also in those processes where it is important to involve many different actors and not stop at the environment field. And for example, the SAICM process or the plastics process, the science policy panel, those are all areas where it's important to reach out to others and work together. Just a few examples. I would like also to take this opportunity, of course, to congratulate Jacqueline Alvarez on her new role, and we look very much forward, of course, to working with her. Well, 5 years of Minamata Convention. Congratulations to the Secretariat and the parties. Thanks to the Secretariat for the hard work. A lot has happened, and it was an impressive report from you, Monica, and Claudia here today on the activities taking place lately. So much more has happened over those 5 years, and many thanks from our end for that. From the activities discussed today, I particularly took up also the important step with the establishment of the open-ended scientific committee for the effectiveness evaluation. Of course, the evaluation is foreseen in the convention text, and to have a scientific foundation for that work is very, very important, very crucial. We took note that the BRS COPs can take place in Geneva. It is somewhat unexpected, but of course, we stand ready to support. And we think it's very important to further advance that work. It was an interesting highlight from David and Andrea today on what has happened at the last COP, in particular, of course, the big step with the e-waste amendment, but also many other things. And we certainly want to continue that kind of work with a successful BRS COP in May. It is, I would say, important to note, for example, the Stockholm Convention. It shows that a lot of work is on the plate with the listing that is upcoming, of which the UV 328 would be one important example. This kind of BRS work and the listing of chemicals, I think, is also very pertinent in the context of the plastic work and the plastic INC. I feel it's very important to use existing instruments to as much as possible, and therefore also the BRS conventions. And in that context, we are very much looking forward to a report by UNEP on chemicals in plastics, and one by BRS more on the governance and what could be governance models and what already exists. And so those reports will be very important references for the upcoming plastic work and discussion. Pierre, I would fully agree with you that the IP4 was a very successful step in moving forward towards ICCM 5 after a challenging period with COVID. And of course, now it's important to keep up their work. It seems clear from the discussions that ambitious objectives and targets are key, that are clear to all the stakeholders involved, but also to prepare milestones and indicators as soon as possible, because that it should be part of the framework. Industry needs to be involved in that process, and according to the current compilation document, which we are very glad to have, there are several targets, indeed, currently draft targets that would foresee the involvement of industry, for example, through sector strategies for the sound management of chemicals waste, and also covering existing standards from the private sector and using them to that end. Of course, such a new framework and the process can only be successful if the Secretariat can function and is adequately financed. And therefore, we believe that it would be very important to that end to have a sustainable financing of the new Secretariat, and that a voluntary scale of assessment should be adopted, so that on a voluntary basis, governments can contribute to this important part of the framework. Included in the draft for the new framework is also the option of the reviews, as Pierre, you have also mentioned. And the idea there is that interested governments could, from their initiative, request a review and request expertise in a field that they would want to examine on the national level, and in order to improve and get some support and recommendations. And we think that would be another element to strengthen the new framework further. And overall, for the new framework, and actually for many processes that were mentioned today, the IOMC organizations will play a very important role, as also highlighted by others. And again, of course, this is an opportunity for Geneva to play an important role by connecting actors and allowing for interaction and engagement. I would like to highlight some points on the SPP just to finish. So as mentioned by Kevin, the SPP open-ended working group will soon establish its bureau and adopt its procedures and appoint a chair. I think those are very crucial steps, and this can happen at the October meeting, as mentioned. I think is rather straightforward and is, however, very important to be able to prepare then the next part of the open-ended working group, where it is about discussing in more depth substantial issues. For the SPP, it will be very important to include from the start not just the environment community, but also other sectors, in particular the health side, and therefore the WHO. As highlighted, this is rooted in the UNEA resolution and has been reiterated since then by many stakeholders, including, for example, in Bucharest at the ICMIP4 meeting, and was also highlighted here today by Kevin. The SAICM stakeholders included in their draft compilation document also draft language about how to link to the new science policy panel, and in particular the ICCM or the future conference can invite the SPP to make a report on a certain topic, and of course it can also take into consideration any report and assessment that comes from the SPP. And I think that makes a lot of sense and is probably a simple way and relevant for many governing bodies, also from other institutions. So just a few points that I wanted to highlight from my side here today, and want to thank very much again the GEN for organizing this event, and for all the speakers here today for the important information, and of course everyone attending here today and online. So thanks very much, and have a nice day from my side.
Thank you so much, Michel. I mean, you have a very, I would say you are on top of things, and you have given a lot of additional insight to each of the processes that have been presented. And I would like to be, on behalf of all the colleagues, really to thank you, and through you also the government of Switzerland for hosting as well in Geneva, and for engaging and then having ambition, a good ambition level for all things that we are doing. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I think we are now just on time to close our event. Before I do that, I would like also to say that I received a question about what I mentioned as the Geneva Toxic Free Talks, and some details of the program. So just to let everyone know that the entire program for these events happening already next week will be posted on the website of this GEN event. So please go there to get into the details. And with that, I would like to really thank all the speakers and also for the questions received. And I would like to conclude the briefing. I'm looking forward to meeting you again at the next briefing on chemicals and waste sometime in the future. And I actually cannot leave the meeting without also from my side thanking Diana and the GEN team. You are putting us together in one program and one room. That's a lot of work behind it, and we just love really to collaborate with you. So we are looking forward to the next opportunity. Thank you so much and have a good rest of the day to everyone.